By the end of this module, you can state the exam's format and scoring, allocate study time by domain weight, and name what the guide places out of scope. Here is how this module builds up. The exam is 60 items in 120 minutes, a mix of multiple choice and multiple response. It's scored on a scale range from 100 to 1000, with a pass at 720. The credential is valid for 12 months. The distinction people get wrong is thinking 720 is a percentage. It's not, it's a scaled score that equates difficulty across different forms of the exam. So you can't say, I need 43 items correct. The exam presents 4 scenarios drawn from a bank of 6, and every scored item is tied to one of them. That's the structure you're walking into. Without this understanding, the failure mode is running out of time because you didn't account for reading speed, or obsessing over a practice score that has no predictive value. In production terms, it's like sizing a service without accounting for network latency. Your model of the system is wrong, and you'll miss your SLA. Here, the SLA is a pass. If you treat domain percentages as pass conditions, you might overstudy a weak domain at the expense of others, when the total scaled score is all that counts. The cost is a failed attempt and another $99. Let's work the customer support agent scenario. You get a long stem describing a support workflow, then a question about architecture. You have 2 minutes total. If you spend 90 seconds reading, you have 30 seconds to answer. That's tight. The alternative, skimming the stem, loses because you'll miss a detail that changes the answer. So you must practice reading scenario stems efficiently. The other 5 scenarios are on the page, they all demand the same pacing. And when you get your score report, remember, the per domain percentages are diagnostic. They tell you where to study next time, not whether you passed. The pass is the total scaled score alone. The durable rule is, any timed, scenario-based exam tests reading speed as much as knowledge. So build your study around timed practice with scenario stems. Know the published contexts because they are the only worlds the exam will present. And never try to reverse engineer a passing percentage from a scaled score. Scaling exists precisely to make that impossible. When the author rejects treating domain percentages as pass conditions, the reason is that they are diagnostic feedback, not gates. Using them as gates would misallocate your attention and give you a false sense of security or panic. In the exam, expect scenario stems that are a full paragraph or more. The distractor is the natural assumption that a scaled score of 720 means 72% correct. Questions might imply you need a certain number right, but the scaling makes that false. Another trap is fixating on domain percentages in your score report as if they were pass conditions. They're not, they're there to help you improve for next time. This is testcraft. The exam is designed to see if you understand its own scoring model, not just the technical content. Weight-based allocation means you take the exam blueprint percentages and turn them into hours. It is a budgeting technique, not a content outline. The distinction people get wrong is treating it as a study order. You are not required to study D1 first. You are required to give D1 the most time, wherever it falls in your schedule. The failure this prevents is studying by interest. In production, that looks like someone who can build a beautiful MCP integration but cannot reason about agentic orchestration and then fails the exam because D1 is over a quarter of the marks. The cost is not just a failed exam, it is the false confidence of feeling well prepared while walking into the test with a massive blind spot. The weight allocation forces you to confront that imbalance before it hurts you. Take the 40-hour budget. Multiply each weight, D1 gets 10.8 hours, D2 gets 7.2, D3 and D4 get 8.0 each, D5 gets 6.0. That is the pure weight allocation. Now open coverage.md. You count D5 as a primary domain in 4 of the 6 scenarios. The alternative, ignoring that count, loses because you would treat D5 as a siloed 15% topic and miss that it is the connective reasoning across most of the exam. The other domains are on the page. The lesson is that weight alone is not the full picture. The durable rule is, allocate by weight first, then adjust for connective domains. Weight sets the minimum time a domain deserves. Coverage tells you if that time needs to be distributed differently across your study sessions. Reject even time allocation because it ignores the blueprint entirely. It is the polite version of studying by interest, and it guarantees you will be underprepared for D1. This is tested indirectly. Scenario questions will present trade-offs that assume you know D1 carries more weight. The distractor is treating all domains as equal answers that suggest spending the same time on each are wrong, and they are tempting because they feel fair. The exam rewards the architect who can prioritize ruthlessly, not the one who tries to be nice to every topic. Scope discipline means actively checking what you plan to study against the exam's published out-of-scope list. It is not about ignoring those topics forever. Some, like prompt caching, become in scope on the professional exam. The distinction people get wrong is treating the exclusion list as static across all certifications. Without scope discipline, you waste hours revising material the exam will never ask. MCP hosting and transports feel like core integration knowledge, so engineers drill them, but they are explicitly out of scope. That time could have been spent on scored domains. Worse, you gain false confidence. You walk in knowing streaming implementation code, but it never appears, while a gap in a tested area costs you points. Take the case of MCP hosting. You might assume it's on the exam because it's a major integration topic. But the out-of-scope list explicitly excludes deploying or hosting MCP servers. Module 10 Step 2 teaches it anyway. It's legitimate engineering, just not scored here. The alternative would be to study it anyway just in case, but that loses you time you could spend on scored domains. The same logic applies to prompt caching in Module 07 Step 3. The rest of the exclusions are on the page. The durable rule: always read the out-of-scope list with the same attention as the in-scope list. It is not an appendix, it is the list of things a well-read engineer will otherwise revise for nothing. When you move between exam levels, recheck exclusions. Prompt caching is out for foundations but in for professional. The reason to reject studying out-of-scope material is not that it's unimportant, but that it costs you time you need for scored domains. This is testcraft. The exam may include distractor topics and answer choices, concepts that sound plausible but are out of scope. If you've studied them, you might be tempted to select them. The trap is reading only the in-scope list and skipping the out-of-scope one. Knowing the exclusions helps you eliminate those distractors quickly. So remember, the pass is your total scaled score, those domain percentages are just diagnostic. Allocate your study time by domain weight, not by what you enjoy. And check the out-of-scope list early, it stops you revising things the exam will never ask.